Hey guys, Mr. Myesis here, and in this video presentation I'm going to be discussing observational studies and experiments. How do you know which one's which? And there's a lot of vocabulary in here, so if you want to write these vocabulary down, it's probably a wise decision. But I'm going to talk about how do we tell the difference between an observational study and an experiment, because they're two very different things. As you can see here, the little boy here is very carefully watching the butterfly. This is an observation, and this kid's doing an experiment. So how do we tell the difference? Well, let's first talk about observational studies. So there are two types of observational studies. There's a retrospective study. Now the key part of this word here is retro. When you think of retro, you should think in the past. So this is any study that's done by gathering data that already exists. So if there's data out there on the internet and you're trying to find something out about something, you're going to go look that up. And you're going to gather those data. You're going to put them together and make some sort of study. So an observational study that's retrospective is looking at stuff that already exists, that's in the past. The next one is not in the past. It is in the present, prospective study. So it's in the here and the now. It's what we're doing to study and gather data that's happening right now. Now what's really important is that we're not actually doing any what we call treatments. We're not making anybody or anything do anything. A good example of this is like when when somebody is just the little kid here, the little kid that's looking at the butterfly. He's not putting the butterfly in a certain environment. He's not making the butterfly eat nectar or whatever. He's just watching the butterfly, seeing what it's doing, and maybe taking some data about how the wings move or what's going on. So if you're just taking data and you're not actually putting any treatments on, that's called a prospective observational study. Now the interesting thing about these studies is that you cannot imply cause and effect. So any type of observational study cannot be used to say that one variable causes the other. So what about an experiment? Well, you don't have to be Dr. Frankenstein to do an experiment, but what you have to, or Beaker, and I forgot what the doctor's name is, but there are some things that you need to be able to do. The first thing is you need to randomize your participants into treatment groups. So you're going to have random assignment into treatments, and those treatments are some sort of thing you're going to do to or have your participants participate in. So we call them participants, or you can call them experimental units if you're not actually using people, and you're giving them those treatments. Now we can have several different treatments in one experiment. For instance, let's say that we are experimenting here on Beaker, and Beaker has, we're interested in knowing if having a scarf on is going to protect him from the electricity. So he's really got two factors going on, whether or not he has a scarf and what the electricity itself. So maybe we want to break, so those are two factors in my experiment, and maybe we want to break those up into different levels. So I actually have two levels here. I have a scarf on, scarf off. There's two levels of that one factor. And here maybe we want to shoot them up with some different voltages, maybe 30 volts and 60 volts, and compare those. So those are other levels of that factor. Now all of those levels put together is equal to the total number of treatments. So I've got scarf on, scarf off, so that's 2, and then 30 and 60, that's a total of 4 different treatment groups or treatment levels in this case, or treatments in this case that Beaker is going to have to endure in our experiment. Now the thing about an experiment, if it is a randomly done, random assigned experiment, and it's done using all of the steps which I have in another video, the principles of experimental design, then we can, in fact, use a good randomized experiment to imply that there is a cause and effect relationship between two variables. Amazing, right? Cause and effect can be implied by an experiment. So how do you tell the difference between an experiment or an observational study? It really comes down to the treatments, folks. If, in fact, you do a treatment, so to do an experiment, you actually have to make participants do something. When you explain this, like let's say you have a problem where you have to explain why is something an observational study or an experiment, always explain what that treatment is in the context of the problem. When you're explaining why something is an experiment, just don't say, oh, because there's no treatments done. You have to say, well, because Beaker wasn't actually given shock therapy, okay? If in fact that was, if we were observing some data on shock, and we didn't actually give people shock, then that's an observation. If we actually shocked them, that's an experiment. But you have to be clear on your context, okay? All right, so that's the difference between an observation and an experiment. If you're in my class, we'll take a look at some different ones, and I'll have you determine which is which. All right, see you soon, guys. Bye.